Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Bonnie's Exploring the Embodiment of Cellular Consciousness, first class of her summer series online classes. We're very glad you're here. My name is Basha, and I'm one of Bonnie's support staff team members. And before Bonnie begins teaching, we'd like to take a few minutes to introduce everyone who's been working behind the scenes to help make Bonnie's online classes possible. We are a team, and we're also a family. As I said, my name is Basha. I'm Bonnie's daughter, and I am the project manager for Bonnie's events and projects. And this is Bonnie.
Hello. Welcome.
Next, we have Len.
Hi, everybody. I'm Len, Bonnie's husband. Glad you're all here today. Welcome. I hope you enjoy it.
And Isa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Isa. I'm Bonnie's son, and I'm the class administrator. So welcome, and I'm the face behind many of the emails.
And very importantly, we have Amardeep. Great. For those of you attending the class in Zoom, at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, you'll have an icon called chat and one called Q&A. If you haven't already introduced yourself in the chat, please take a moment to do so now. We would love to hear, we would love to know who you are and where you're from. And for the Q&A box, if you have a question for Bonnie about the material that she presents, please type it into the Q&A during the class. And towards the end of the class, Bonnie will take a few minutes to respond to as many of the questions as she can. For those joining you on Bonnie's YouTube Live and Facebook Live, welcome. And without further ado, here's Bonnie. Enjoy.
I'm really overwhelmed that we're here. Welcome to my corner in my home. What to say except I'm speechless, but I'm supposed to say something, so I have to find words. Mainly, thank you. Thank you. In this first session on cellular consciousness, I felt we could start with vibration. And one of the ways that vibration is experienced is through the tone of us. There's also the tone of the environment, and that it's just Len and me here. And yet we're all here. And in each of your places of shelter, we're here. We're here together. We are neighbors. It makes me weep that it has taken such a strong force for us to be here worldwide. I think people from 77 countries registered. Doesn't that just amaze you that we are here together in this moment? And yes, some won't come on until morning. It's morning here in the middle of the night in Asia. And Australia, it's late, New Zealand. But we are here. And so there's something in the vibration of that which has brought us together. And then in the flesh, feel your flesh. So that's another thing. This is, I hope, not a performance, but that it's a shared experience. So just feel your flesh. There's a tone in your flesh, And sometimes we're very low in tone, and maybe some of you are very tired and ready for bed. Some of us are waking up, and some of us, when we wake up, are tired. We have different rhythms. I'm a morning person, so I'm awake. And some of us are very fast and high-toned, and some of us are lower, and I'm more lower. With age, that happens also, perhaps. So what is meant by tone? Usually we think of tone in music and sound. And this kind of tone, body tone, is called, well, it depends how you're looking. Are you looking at cellular tone? Are you looking at the tone of blood vessels or nervous system, or the stomach, digestive system, or the lungs? Certainly during this pandemic, I've been in touch with people who've had the virus and how to meet that kind of tone, day-to-day emotional tone, physiological tone. And we actually approach this in all different ways, physically and psychologically, spiritually. So because muscle tone, muscle tone is more common, let us start with looking at muscle tone. So as an occupational therapist for over 60 years, I learned about testing, muscle testing, and how we know if something is, well, first of all, if it doesn't have nerve innervation, it doesn't have tone. But then within that range can be low tone, hypotonus, to high tone, hypertonus. And then there's a range that we call normal tone. And feel your tone. You know, we're anxious, we have a different tone than when we're passionate and peaceful or excited. We change our tone. But now just feel your muscle tone. And again, with age, muscle tone generally diminishes, although I still have enough tone to jump around. I'm on a ball, that helps. Then we contract. I hope you're doing this as well. You can do it sitting, and eventually we'll find other postures, although we're somewhat limited in the spaces that we are. Now, this is called flexion, and this is called extension, but this is not really movement. I mean, it's movement, we're moving, but this is movement. The qualities of movement, play with the quality of movement. It's not just now I'm abducting, but I'm moving. I'm moving. And how do we enliven the cells so that all the cells of the tissue are moving? And for those of you who've known me for a long time, look at my right hand, how it's opened up. So even though looking pretty soon at 80, and a hand as a child that was like this, by opening the tissues, the cells opening, it probably looks almost the same. It's not, but it's alive. How do you feel the aliveness of your tissues? So then we're looking mechanically again at flexion. The muscles get shorter. And when we extend, the muscles get longer. And if you haven't studied kinesiology, which is considered the science of movement, but it's such a small part of movement. It's the science of the mechanics of movement, but not of the aliveness of movement. But it is getting shorter, and then it gets longer. And yet these muscles are called flexors, and these muscles are called extensors. These flex, but these are not extending the arm. When we are in this position with gravity, this is getting shorter, but now this is getting longer. It's not controlled by the extensors, so the flexors extend and flex. So if I flex from here, and you do the same, but careful for this one, watch me first, because I don't want you to hurt yourself. If you use the extensors, you could hurt yourself. So do it slowly with your extensors, and it'll make your shoulders come up. That you're extending with the flexors by lengthening. So we use the word contraction traditionally, and we're just talking about, oh, I feel contracted, for shortening. But contraction is also lengthening. But in our cultural English anyway, and there are people here from many languages, maybe I should go a little slower. I'm pretty slow anyway. I get excited that this is equally a contraction. We have contracted not by the extensors, but by lengthening the flexors, and the extensors are engaged, but they are not the control. The control is the expansion. So this, I'm not the first one to come up with this. There is actually a traditional term, concentric contraction and eccentric contraction. So when we bring the knee, extend the knee, this is the extensors extending the knee, but we're also using the extensors to control as the expand the knee. Again, careful, and also I might fall off the ball. That would be funny. Extend the leg through here. Oh, I am gonna fall here. But then if you use the flexors to flex, that's not releasing the leg down. This is a controlled eccentric contraction. In most injuries, I'm assuming that most of you, well, everybody's moving, hopefully. I did have paralysis of the spine, so, and couldn't move it at a period, a couple of periods. But given not speaking about that, although there are ways to regain the movement. When you go to the cell, you actually have more possibilities than if you're just trying to go through the nervous system, which is limited by its cellular backup. In other words, from my experience, it's not a fact, you have to find your own facts. But my experience is that the nervous system is a recording system. So we didn't have a nervous system when the egg and the sperm came along. It took a while for the nervous system to develop. So for something I read, when I say I read, you have to check and Google it, because it's transferring through my body and through my brain, which is also my body. That, brain. That when people are looking at the conceptus, the embryo and the fetus in the womb, that in the embryo, which is the first 8 weeks, that they pick up the heartbeat in 3 weeks. So the first 3 weeks of the 8 week, the heartbeat can be picked up. But I have read that the brain waves are not picked up until about 6 months in the fetal stage. And that's a big difference, going from the beginning of creating a body and to having a functional one that can survive outside of the womb. For those of you who are new, we haven't met yet, but we're meeting today. I have difficulty going straight forward. I just go round and round and round, maybe ad nauseum for some, but that's is the way it is. I attempt to go forward, but I still go like this. Okay, so where was I before I went around that ring? It had to do with concentric and eccentric contraction. Had to do with tone. Oh, and I went to the cell. So in all of these years of exploring movement and looking for what is the essence for the child who is born with severe neurological challenges and disorganization, what is the fundamental movement principle that applies also to the professional dancer and Olympic athlete and everyday life, that the principles must be the same, and not that you do this for this case and this for that case, but that I wanted to know and still want to know, what are the basic principles that go underneath all of our movement? And then what happened, excitingly, is that also we could look at that in animal movement and look at the philosophy and the consciousness and emotions that follow that. All right. So in this process, the nervous system records cellular movement. I'm saying this for those of you who are new to We Haven't Met, or another person who is teaching body-mind centering. Those of you already have heard me say this through actually almost 50 years, some people. And I'm so happy that we're here still together. So the brain also is cells. So approaching the brain to know itself, as well as to record the rest of the body, how it records itself. So I'm going round and round. Eventually, I hope that the membrane around what I'm expressing and sharing is coherent. So I hope you're still exploring how you just do this and how you move here. How you just flip your head around, or how you discover the cells moving your head instead of your brain saying, move your head. But your cells are moving, and therefore you are moving. In vibration, there's a condensing and expanding. It's a common, I'm going to say process, but I think there's a better word. I also sometimes say the wrong word, not the one I mean, but my mouth has gone off without my brain. I try to keep them together as much as I can. That this expanding and condensing in the universe, it's holding, and it's in the space. So when you have your hands and you bring your hands together, you can feel the space. It has a dynamic, and it can get, so you can't bring your hands together even, or then it will just open your toes and step you up and down, rather than I'm going to stand up and I'm going to stand down, I'm going to sit down. So this is very helpful if someone, for example, has a problem and they can't, I'm going to stand. I'm saying this for the cameraman. Cameraman, Len, I'm going to stand. We're new at this. Welcome to our home, my painting. I need my feet to be shown. Can't go any further. I'm so happy you can see us as real people. So if somebody can't lift their foot, maybe my head will get cut off. If you can't lift the foot, let the space lift your foot. So you can stand too, and you don't have to worry about the camera. How you could lift your foot, but then the space could lift your foot. This is very helpful when there is a low tone or there's some neurological issue that you can't, or maybe you think I have to lower, plie. Space can lower you and space can lift you up. So even without the ball, there's buoyancy. So I can go back a little bit. It's space, I hope you're walking with me. Space can lift you and lower you. The space pulled me down. Or I could make a sound, you see it's a thud. Where space does it, it's different. Space can lift. It can move us. Rather than that, I'm going to kick my leg, analyze which muscle's moving, what's going on, move my body. No, my cells can move. Me. Instead of my brain saying, bring your leg over, take your leg apart. No. Cells moving you. And you are in the cell. So it's not a projected image from the outside of the culture. Could be family, a lot of cultural issues, historically and currently. This is a personal culture imposing on your own self. And as we live more as a community in our body, we know that the heart needs the liver, needs the bladder, that the muscles are not working on their own. They're expressing the blood, they're expressing the CSF, the lymph, the interstitial. This is what I want to share this summer. Of course, I'm doing it now, 50 years. But there's something about our international community that's here. It's reflected, and the way that we are here is reflected by how we have been treated in our culture and our society. So somehow opening ourselves to ourselves perhaps will allow us to live more communally in the outer world. All right, get off that box. It's a very passionate one. So I need to, before I go further, I need to know and hope that you have been feeling what it's like to condense a muscle and to elongate a muscle. A concentric contraction, an eccentric contraction. Concentric, eccentric. Concentric, eccentric. Eccentric, concentric. Eccentric, concentric. That's mechanical, but it's helpful to see it as a mechanical visual process. But now we'll come to the leg, my leg, your leg, a leg. if you use the extensors to extend your leg, do that and just see what that feels like, and then lengthen it. What happens instead of if you extend your leg from the extensors, getting shorter, you extend your leg by the flexors getting longer. I might fall off the ball, where this one, I have to kind of feel, oh, I gotta use my muscles. I gotta build my core strength by shortening. We're here, whoo, I just flip up. So what extends the leg is a question. So if you ask me that question, I can't answer it. It's a multiplicity of factors. So now stand up, did you just do one leg? I didn't tell you not to, but if you have two, if you only did one leg, you can compare. But also our legs are different anyway. But when I stand here, I feel more supported on this leg. Where this leg, I'm okay. That's really great. I'm glad I'm okay. In the back, I don't know if you'll hear me. I'm going to turn around. I guess I can do this. That when you lengthen the muscles, the buttocks line can drop. This is the buttocks for those of you who maybe didn't learn that word. That will all lengthen. I'll just say, is this butt line longer? Here or here? Now, I don't know. I can't see it. So now, instead of going back to the ball, I'll just do a shortening of the hip flexors. Are you standing with me? Please do. Otherwise, I don't know, you get maybe 10%, maybe that much. So it's shortening and now it's lengthening. It's shortening and it's lengthening, but what if you use your extensor muscles of the hip to Batma. So there's a function of the muscle that's that's always called the antagonist. Well, it's a language that came out of right and wrong. Either for it or you're against it. Instead of that, it's complementary. And in this case, again, I could say shorten this and then lengthen it, or I could say come up from lengthening the back. So the one that has been called the antagonist is actually the one who can bring us the most spatial intent. So play with that a moment and know that there are many of us playing together. It's a challenge. I always avoided the camera because I would feel shy and inhibited. And what you're offering to me, and I appreciate it, is that you are through the camera. So I want to be in dialogue with you. And I have to do that through the camera. And that's, I care. I care. And you must care because you're spending the time by choice. Thank you. So where are we? We're on concentric and eccentric, or condensing and expanding, and then expanding and expanding. Now, I'm giving you my experience. If you're very loose, then you would focus more on the condensing. So I'm not the one who can help you the most with that, because I'm more squatty, like that. I'm kind of short and condensed. So for me, to elongate, but somebody who's already very long arms, long, I just, so, the grass on the other side of the track or the fence. Maybe you'll want to be more condensed within that length. So I'm going to go up for me, I could just keep going. I'm going to go out, but maybe now I'm going to condense. It's not just concentric, it's condensing. What do I mean by condensing and expanding versus concentric and eccentric? Concentric and eccentric is helpful, concentric, eccentric, concentric, eccentric. If we're here though, this is concentric flexion and concentric extension, because gravity has been eliminated as a changing factor. As soon as you add gravity, then you have concentric eccentric. But when you're just parallel to the earth, you have basically concentric here and eccentric here, concentric here, eccentric there. So can you feel that? So it's not like, oh, let's see, what did she say? Did she say, I don't remember? Useless. Feel the shortening, feel the lengthening, feel the shortening here, the lengthening here, feel the shortening here, the lengthening there. So that I spent many, many, many years exploring from this perspective. And it's very helpful. So if in yoga you want to go to the side, you could think this is shortening and this is lengthening. This is now shortening and that's lengthening. Or you could feel that you're expanding cellularly through, not just looking at, oh, sorry, we're here, not just looking at that's getting longer and now it's getting shorter, but it's lengthening. And now this, again, I'm going to do myself doing lengthening. If I'm really long and tall and very flexible, then I'll think, well, I'm going to condense as I lengthen out. I'm going to condense as I lengthen out. So even as a not tall limbed person, but just who I am, I can condense and I can expand. I can even expand coming in as I'm condensing. These balls are great. If you don't have one and you're able to invest, they're really nice to move on. A chair, you can be doing this on a chair too, but this is great. I'm color coded. Of course, now I would like to pause and just have you explore. And it's nice when we have partners. I know some people, there are more people in the room, family, friend, 6 feet apart. I'm pausing because I'll just keep going round and round, so at least pause. So what I'm suggesting is that as you feel your nervous system into your brain is recording a different possibility, rather than just looking at contracting to strengthen, it's condensing to strengthen. Or to move into space isn't just moving your arms out, it's expanding into space. It's expanding through all the tissues. And if I move my finger here, I'll feel it in my foot there, even if I don't move. That we're moving through our whole body, even with a small movement. And again, that's helped me to open my hand from a serious, very early childhood injury. We're always alive as long as we're breathing, which is expanding. Inhale to exhale. What I'd like to do now is to go into postural tone. So we looked at muscle tone. I've mentioned other kinds of cellular tone, just the basic cellular tone. If a baby is born prematurely, they haven't developed tone, they're going to be floppy. And the first tone to develop is the flexors. And it's called physiological flexion, in which we curl into a little ball. And a baby born early doesn't curl, they just kind of hang instead of being curled in. What will happen with a baby born early, and some of us, there are enough of us here that were born early, that it takes time to develop tone, because the tone is developed in the last 3 months of being in the womb. And if somebody comes early, the first tone develops in the feet and it moves up the body, and the head and the arms are the last. So depending on then how we're handled, a lot of times we're encouraged to sit and to stand. And so we develop a high extensor tone, but still a weak flexor. So then we go to the gym and we do all of this strengthening to get the core strength. I'm going to make another suggestion, is that to develop the tone of the body rather than the concentric contraction of the muscles. So we are earth people living in a cosmos of the heavens. And that's our basic environment. We have all the personal environments, but that's our basic one. And so my path to, I don't know the right word, but like to understand the difficulties in my own life, my own cultural, personal challenges, has been to open to the earth and the heavens, and what is that process as the person who's living in this body. And when in your body, when our spirit leaves, the body has no more life in it. So we're here now. What is our relationship to the earth, to the heavens, to ourself, and to each other? And somehow nature has also clues. The environment, how I go off. So let me come back to postural tone. Our postural tone means the culmination, it's an expression of all of our tone expressed through our muscles and our readiness to move. So muscle tone, a definition of muscle tone, which is more commonly spoken about, is it's the resting state of a muscle before a contraction. It exists before, during, and after the contraction. It's the resting state. So if I'm kind of worried about, I'm in fear about something, I'm going to have a different resting state. Or if I'm really bored, depressed, I'll have a different one. And if I'm just enjoying the day, then I'll have a different resting state. So all of our movement is in relation to earth and heaven, underneath all of the other relationships that we have with ourselves and with others. So I've been exploring that since 1969. Yeah, when I studied with Dr. Carl and Berta Bobath. It opens up another way of tone. So there's a phenomena that when we are face down, and this is a little bit awkward, maybe it's a lot awkward actually, if I'm honest. I'm doing it where I can still be seen. When we're face down, lying on the belly, if you can lie on your belly, or if you have a blanket you can put over a chair. This is a little bit awkward. It is not, well, it's awkward. That when we're belly down, what I learned was that tone, postural tone, is increased on the underside. So in this case, it would be the front of the body, which are the flexors, if we ignore the legs for now, because the legs turned around the other way. But the front of the body. So we're not going to talk so much about flexor and extensor as the front of the body. And unless you're really in touch with it, you're not likely to recognize that. But the way that it comes out, or the way that it came out from the early researchers, this was a very early identity, was with animals that they cut the brain, or they did different things, or with people with neurological problems, in particular children with cerebral palsy. And I was able to see the children at a time when there wasn't a lot being done to help reorganize their nervous system. Now there's much more. But in lying on the belly, the children would go like this. They would curl up. And then when they were on their back, this is not on a ball, this would be lying down. And lying down on the back, if I get my foot out, they would have extensor, the back of the body tone would increase. And I asked that question of myself, what is this? And what I found was, instead of talking about the tone increasing, what would be the underside increasing, whatever the underside, so on the side, they would come up this way, and this would diminish, and then the other side. So we can do that, and if you're in your place, lay on the floor and feel how, if you're on your back, or you're on your belly, or you're on the side, or this side, that this is a natural response because we're gravitationally oriented in the body. It's the nature. But we don't do that normally. Normally it's so subtle we may not even notice. And so one way we've explored is to feel the yield. Feel the yield. That's different than a contraction. It's a condensing. It's not a contraction. It's a yield. It's a condensing. It's not expanding on this side. It's condensing. It's this condensing. And we learn to embrace And if I'm on my belly, I don't know how to do this, you can see. I'm looking at you though. Instead of contracting, there's a condensing into the ball for me now, otherwise the floor. You can put a pillow or a ball or just the floor itself. That you condense, you embrace. And then, if I go to this side, but maybe in the womb, I was curled the other way. So when I come on this side, I just feel kind of floppy. I don't feel that, I don't know what you mean, Bonnie, I'm talking to myself, by that condensing. So then I explore, well, I felt this condensing. I can find this condensing. I can learn to yield where I didn't know how because I didn't have the experience to yield. And then on the belly, this is crazy. Maybe I'm kind of hyper alert. I grew up hyper alert. And it's hard to yield here because what if something happens? Here we have a lot of earthquakes and a lot of other things. Can I really yield into the earth when the environment's not safe? And I learned to stay alert. And so to condense, I better wait till 12 o'clock to do this. No, is that the right time? 11, yeah. All the times are different, doesn't matter what I say, but I might just fall asleep. And that's been one of the things that I've had trouble sleeping for many, many years. And I'm sleeping today, not now, but I've learned to sleep again. And one of the ways is to feel this condensing just with the earth. And then the condensing, I can let go. I can trust the heavens. Who knows ultimately, but in this moment, and maybe something happens and I have to get up, but I'm getting up with a sense already of my nature in this lifetime. I'm going to pause again. I'd like to do the other side of it. So we've had this for this first session. And some of you I hope will come back, and others of you, I know not everybody will, but I welcome you to come back as we build this over the summer. So as I'm yielding, I don't know if you can hear me. I asked people to raise their hand, but I can't see you. As I yield, and I'm condensing in the back, I'm expanding in the front. And that expansion on the upper side takes me, I have to be careful I don't fall over on the ball, takes me into space. I think I'm going to go on the floor to show this, because I was a little worried about falling, not for my sake, but I didn't want to, maybe you would worry. So here, I'm condensing. Here I'm not condensing. I've laid down, okay, what do I do now? What am I required to do now? Attitude, instead of, oh, I can feel the surface of this floor. I can feel the the earth. I can feel gravity supporting me. I can yield. So I'm not only yielding, I hope you can hear me. I'm not only yielding, now I can leotard. I have a different body than when I wore it in, so many years ago. But I thought you could see me better. And I never wanted to throw it away or give it away someday. But here I'm condensing, and here I'm not eccentric contracting, I'm expanding. I'm expanding my front, my face, in front of my legs. So that's where we have to not say flexor extensor, but at the front of my body, I can expand it because it's the upper side, it's the heaven side. And the back side is condensing and yielding into the earth. And when it's time to come up, I have the strength of the back and the spaciousness of the top to rise. And that's different if I would do a belly crunch. A belly crunch, I don't think I can do it. Years ago, I could do it. No, I don't have it. Well, maybe I could do it. You see, it's really different than if I condense the back, expand the upper side, I'm in relationship to the earth and heaven. Now, if I do it on my belly, I've changed. Again, I don't know if you can hear me, I'll raise my voice, but I'm going inward into myself because the front is more personal. My front, my underside, is in relation to Mother Earth. I condense into Mother Earth, who is embracing me. And I'm expanding to Father Heaven. It's different. If I condense, now if I just lie here and I do a back contraction, I'll hurt my back over the years. Youth can do it, but it does add up. I condense, I feel the embrace of Mother Earth. I'm her child. She's older than I am. I don't want to grip my butt and lift my legs that way. I want to expand the back. I'm still embracing Mother, but I'm expanding the back. I'm expanding the back. And I can rise up. Where if I'm just doing a back tightening, and my core, and I'm too old for this. But if I embrace the front as in condensing, my back is expanding, I can come up. There, almost I could do that. I'm showing off. Because 20 years ago, I couldn't even lean my head forward. I had not the strength. So I like to share the glory of being able to move again. I think I've covered what I want to cover for today. And I want to pull it together. And we'll have time for questions and not answers. That's, again, a philosophical concept from here that one actually has answers. There's response, and I want to respond. But if I ever answered your question, I apologize, because your questions, our questions, guide us. They guide us, this idea that, oh, what's the answer? Otherwise you get a good mark or a bad mark. There is no answer. There are responses. And how do we feed the questions, open them up to more people to receive? So I can add a few things to the spaces in between what I went over. One is, what is cellular consciousness? I don't know, but what I'm wanting to point to is it's awakening the cells to themselves. For example, we started, I said, feel your arm, feel yourself. When you feel your arm, I don't know how much you can see here. I'll come closer. You can lift your skin. And you can feel your flesh. I'm thinking I'm going to back a little bit here. Feel the fleshiness and kind of shake it a little bit. Maybe you don't have flesh, so much flesh. Maybe it's, I have a lot of soft flesh. There's a way you can feel it with your bones, squeezing it, making it hardness to the softness, rather than that you use the flesh of one hand to feel the flesh of the other arm. Or with this hand, instead of I want to see what's here, I'm from my brain saying close, open, close, open, close, open. I'm using my flesh of this hand to feel the flesh of the other. So my whole body is fleshy. And if I move from that fleshiness, it has sensuality. It's fleshy. Then underneath that fleshiness is bone. There are two bones here. And we could start to feel there's something dense underneath this fleshiness. So instead of feeling fleshiness with this hand to the bone of this hand, I want to feel the bones of this hand into the bones of this arm. So it's bone to bone. It's not, again, press. It's bone. Bone through the flesh to get to the bone. So now if I move with my bones, it's very different. They're spiraling, the bones spiral, but it's different than the flesh. Then I can do bones and flesh together. But my whole body is moving with it. I'm not just doing something here. They're pathways of tonal flow. Pathways of tonal flow. So it's not just some isolated conceptual thing of my brain. But this is going into my brain, and my brain knows what I'm doing. So I'm putting hands on people, which it's kind of a no-no right now. It's very strange. I can tell when I'm working with someone who is not so, maybe it's an injury, or it's numb, or it's just not, the pathways of tonal flow have been disrupted. And I start to feel the way the fluids and the tone of the tissue, and relate to that through the tone of my own tissue. I feel like, oh, that's fascial. Then I go to fascia, not here, here. And then all of a sudden I'll say, oh, you felt that, didn't you? Maybe they say yes or no, but it's like the nervous system connected into it, recorded it, then you can use your brain to do it. But there's a way to tell through touch and through movement that when you feel that tonal flow, that organization, then you know it's made a loop to the through the nervous system to the brain. But if it's not there through the tonal flow, the nervous system doesn't is not using that information. It's using the restricted information. All right. Flesh, bone, skin, flesh, bone. Once you feel the bone, then inside of the bone is marrow. So a bone has an outer layer called the periosteum. It's the sensitive part of the bone. It tells you where the bone is in space, among other feedback. And then you get to the hard bone that gives us the ability to rise and support ourselves. And then you get to the marrow. And the marrow is where we create our blood cells, white blood cells. It's the base of the immune system, which right now we want to strengthen. We want to all the time, but right now it's being called forth. And also the red blood cells, our circulation, our sense of warmth, our connection with each other. The lymph is more defending, not through pushing away, but through entering. So if you want to feel the bone, your bone, you can feel with the skin of one bone, skin of one side, not one bone, to the skin of the bone that you're feeling, in this case, the inner bone here, or you could take a finger, your leg, and feel just the shape of it. Then you go to the hardness. Oh, this is where strength is. Strength isn't in the muscle. Yes, it is in the muscle. It's in the muscles for moving, but not for support. So we need strong bones for support. We need living, juicy muscles for movement. They move the bones. We need strong bones, but not hardening the bones, but feeling the compact bone, the density of our bones. And then the marrow is the fluidity of the bone, so that the bone has fluidity. It's not like a skeleton that's kind of, hanging there. It's got life. It's creating blood, creating the immune system. So when we're afraid, and we all know what fear is. I never met anyone who didn't. I've had a lot of fear. Is that we have a tendency to close off the marrow. So open your marrow at this time. There's a lot to be afraid of, but instead of closing off your bones, closing off the marrow, what if you open the marrow so that you have more immune system in which to engage with what needs to happen or what is happening, rather than to limit yourself by closing it off. So feel the aliveness, then feel it into your legs so that there's a fluidness, there's a fluidity, rather than I'm going to stand up and I'm going to sit down. I'm going to stand up and sit down. So I'm using the strength of my muscles to get up and down instead of, no, I'm using the fluidness of through my bones. And the muscles are cooperating. I think I can pause there. I'm looking for spaces. I mentioned also the dynamic of space, how we can feel that space is an entity. It's holding us up. If I go this way and just it's following me, rather than I think it's not there, but I know it's there, and it can move me. Did I say anything else? I think I'm going to open it up for question and comment or response, not answer. And that'll give a little more time. And if there are no questions, then I'll make up more stuff. But I also have to take 1 minute and get a tissue. I have it here. Thank you. Did anybody ask a question, Basha?
Yes, we've had some wonderful questions come in. The first one is, can you explain information coming in from the back and out the front?
Say that one more time, please.
Can you explain information coming in from the back and out the front?
Coming in through the back. That would have to be lying on my back for that. Coming in through the back and out the front. I would need to be lying with my back toward the earth so that there's a condensing. I'm assuming that, and maybe I'm making a not correct assumption, that information is condensing in the back. I can't answer this. The person who asked the question, by exploring it, you'll find it. And then I'm opening to heaven. And I have to be careful because of the ball. I can come up. The opposite of that would be if I'm lying on my front, I'm condensing in the front and opening through the back to heaven. When I say opening, I'm expanding, but I'm not expanding. I have to go down a minute. I'm not expanding in the front. I'm expanding in the back. I'm condensing in the front. I'll do that again, maybe. If I'm expanding in the front and condensing in the back, which would be looking at it through what's shortening and what's lengthening. My back is shortening, right? My front is opening, but the tone is just the opposite. I'm expanding in the back, condensing in the front. So another way of looking at that, when I'm not in relation to gravity, I have the choice because everything is happening simultaneously. I hope I'm expanding instead of answering. Reflexes, which is something I want to also explore this summer, interact with postural tone. Reflexes, writing reaction, equilibrium responses. I have to get my words connected to my movement. In order for a reflex to come into existence, it needs to have a specific stimulus. Unless it has that specific stimulus, it doesn't come into reality, but it's always there as a potential. It comes from our ancestors, however far back you want to trace that. But it won't come into our lifetime unless it's stimulated into our lifetime. And that's physical, emotional, social, spiritual. We require an environmental support for our own development, and therefore to provide this support to others for their development. I'll go off and off. So once a stimulus brings a reflex into existence, the stimulus is no longer needed for that reflex to be alive and well, to occur. And the stimulus can occur without the reflex. So they have to be brought into existence together, but then they can exist separately, but they're still working. They're still existing. So for every reflex, there's an opposite reflex, and they coordinate and modulate with each other to create freedom. So when I was lying on the back and I felt the condensing here in the opening here, I don't need gravity anymore. I don't need this position. I wasn't lying down, but I can do it now. For example, back bending. People push forward usually. I see it for over 50 years in yoga here, or dance. No, it's to condense the back, not condense it by contracting, but to feel the condensing and to expand the front. And doing a forward bending, if I have found it on the earth lying, then I don't push back against my heart. I condense and expand the back. Have I made it more complex? I hope more questions, but did I have anything to do with the question? If you'll ask that person. Can you ask that person if that made any sense at all? Not answer, but expand.
That's not an easy thing to do at this moment, but what I can do is move on to another person's question.
Okay.
If that's okay? Yeah. Okay, there have been several questions about a statement that you made about lymph. You said lymph defends by entering. And there have been questions about what you mean by that.
Okay. Again, I have to do other things to get to that. Yet I'm lympho. Interesting. Personal comment. Our blood circulation and our lymph circulation are interwoven. With the blood, we usually start with the blood, but we could start with the capillaries. But I'll start with the blood because I have words. When blood leaves the heart, it goes through we call that arteries. And arteries in a way is the way that I remembered it early to kind of connect the language, which is a struggle for me many times. So the blood goes through the arteries and it gets smaller and smaller, and then it gets to the capillary bed. And if you would imagine that my fingers are connected, that there's no break there, this could be an example of an artery going to a capillary bed, and the capillary vessels get small enough for one blood cell to go through. That's quite amazing. And in this area, say between where my fingers start, they start earlier, but you see them starting there, that we can call this the zone, the iso ring, or the zone, Z-O-N-E, of the iso ring, I-S-O-R-I-N-G, iso ring, R-I-N-G. That's comes from lymphatic work that I learned through Austrian lineage. I think it went back to Danish, but whatever. It's not a word that we find in English physiology books. So the iso ring is this area of the capillary bed, because this will be the veins coming back, where the fluid, the oxygen, whatever is being carried, not the blood cells, but the fluids, what's carried in the fluids, secretes out in this area, secretes out into the interstitial fluid, which is the inner C of the body, and then it goes into the cells. And then whatever the cells do with it, breathe, and etc., they send fluid, carbon dioxide back out, and it's brought in, it flows into the capillary bed on this side of the vein. Easy to do, difficult for me to say. So the blood is flowing hard here. It gets to what I call the zone of the isoring, because it's not like this point, it's a zone. And there's a word in English. Oh, if there were people here, I could ask. Estuary, I think is the word, where the fresh water is flowing into the ocean and ocean water is flowing in where the river meets the sea. This is kind of like an estuary. Fluid is flowing in, it's following. Let me just say it's flowing in, and then it's flowing back, and it comes to the heart. This is an unbroken system unless you cut an artery or vein. It just cycles back to the heart, and then it goes into the pulmonary circulation and comes to the lungs and then back, and then, so it's the stuttering. The circulation is spiralic, and it's and the heart is the center of the spiral. Meanwhile, at the capillary beds, and every cell has access to blood, fluid, oxygen. The walls of the capillary, the vessels, can't reabsorb large particles. It's limited what it can reabsorb. So the lymph system starts at the capillary bed and carries, I'm not being clear. The lymph vessel only goes from the periphery to here. So now I've mentioned here. What is here? Take your fingers, your pointer fingers, go in front of your ears, and then like a ski slope, come down. You just slide down to your clavicle, your collarbone, and then if you take your finger like this, your thumb and your pointer finger, and you don't squeeze, but you just take hold of your clavicle and you laser it in by feeling, not by poking, but by receiving. You will find there the terminals for the lymphatic system, for the lymphatic channels. So all the lymph of the body, everywhere, flows to these 2 points. And then from these 2 points, flowing up from here, down from here, in from here, it's flowing in. From here, whatever is, I'll have to go back again, something else, but I'll just say here it flows in into the blood and goes into the heart. But meanwhile, it's gone through lymph nodes. It's gone through filtering systems. So for bacteria, that's one of the reasons they're removed for cancer, is that it's a way to filter foreign matter. Viruses is another one. I don't know all the things that it's filtering, but it's filtering to clean out the system and to take care of particles that can't be absorbed into the blood vessels. So when you have swelling, it means there's more particles of some kind. Could be dead cells, right? And so the lymph is important to get the circulation to bring that excess of particles out of the fluid of that place and filter it through the lymph nodes and eventually that the fluid returns to the heart and can be processed. Ultimately, we process through our heart when we can. So let me say a little bit more, a little bit of time. So if you hold your hand out, and when you get pokey, that's not helping your defense system. It might seem like, but it's not helping your lymph system, which is the system that is the cleaning system. It clears the water so that I read once there was a pond, I don't know what size, of water that was very polluted. And they stopped putting the pollution into the pond. And in 5 years, the pond cleaned itself. Or when things are stagnant, water outside, inside the body, it gets diseased in some way, it's toxic. And so you need to get the fluid flowing freely, and it will clear the toxicity. So when I say it's a defense system, it will clear the toxicity. So instead of grabbing and pushing out, poking, from your fingers, the lymph is flowing back to here. And it requires absorbing the reality into our blood. So with that coming in, I extend further out. It's different if I poke myself out, I'm actually shrinking in. But when I extend through the lymph, I'm actually bringing into me. I am not going out. I am receiving. I accept and I act. I have no idea if that was what you were asking, but thank you.
Great, thank you. One more question. There have been several questions about something you said about the bone marrow. You said, open the marrow. And people are wondering, asking questions about what you mean by that.
These are good questions. They're the same questions I have. I'm just probably older than most of you asking the question. I'm going to take, I only have a minute, but I'm going to take something to show it. Thank you. This is one of the explorations that we do sometimes in class when we're looking at bone, touching bone, feeling bone. If you take a regular pencil, which may be harder to find today, I don't know, it's a wooden pencil, and you can use it to feel your own bone. I feel a clock ticking here. This is simulating our own bones. So the outer part, the paint of the bone and the shape, to feel in yourself the shape of the bone. And we often have people feeling other people's bodies to feel the shape, to help people feel the shape. You have to do it yourself now. And then feel the hardness of the wood of the bone, and feel it with the bone, the wood of your own bone. And then inside, I don't know what you can see there. There's the lead of the bone to find your marrow. And what happens is the bone breaks. Don't break your bone, please. The pencil will break, not because of hardness, but because you found the fluidity. And yeah, don't go breaking anybody's bones. But feel that it broke not because of its hardness, it broke because I found where it was fluid. So in standing, one of the things we'll look at is postural tone or some reflexes from the feet. I'm not going to stand from my leg extending by the extensor muscles here. I'm going to do it because the tone of my feet is condensing into the earth through the marrow of my whole body. Even my voice is different than if I want to stand with my muscles. It's just my muscles, it's local. But the tone, undertone of the condensing, and I'm expanding in heaven to the heavens. I have strength that's different than what's a muscle strength here. Because I'm alive. I'm not just muscular. I'm not just opening my belly and tucking my butt and going like, ugh. I might look good. No, I'm alive. And I hope you feel that too, because it's fun. It's really wonderful to feel alive. Even being very ill, to feel the aliveness still under the illness. What's now, Basha?
That's about all the time that we have for the class. If you would like to close the class, and then I have a few announcements to make.
Thank you. This was actually fun. I was, a bit nervous about it. And then I'd say, don't be nervous, just have fun. I did. Thank you. Be well. I hope you'll join us again.
So thank you everyone for being here today and joining Bonnie. We really appreciate your presence and support and hope that you had a nice hour and a half exploring along with her. A few announcements to make. A recording of this class will be made available for free, and we will send out an email to everyone who registered for the class with the link to the recording when it's available. We'll also post the link to Bonnie's social media pages and in a general newsletter. This class is the first class of Bonnie's summer series of classes. If you'd like to continue studying with her this summer, there is still time to sign up for her summer series, which start next Thursday, June 18th here in the US. You can find more information and registration at Bonnie's personal website, bonniebainbridgecohen.com, and we will put that information on the screen in just a few moments. We would also like to announce that for those of you who would like to attend Bonnie's summer series but are not able to pay the full price right now, we are offering a Pay What You Can scholarship, and we will put that information on the screen in just a few moments as well. Information about the Pay What You Can scholarship will also be included in the email we send to people who registered for this free class, as well as post information about it at Bonnie's website, bonniebainbridgecohen.com. So please stick around for a few more minutes as we put this information and further resources, as well as a message from Bonnie on the screen. And thank you once again for joining us. We hope you'll be with Bonnie again next week. Take care.